Hello, good morning on this very fine Sunday, where today James Bond Radio will be doing the very final day of interviews with the JBR listeners on the penultimate day of the 30 Days of Spectre. My name is Chris Wright, and with me is my good friend and aficionado of all things Bond, Mr. Tom Sears.
Hello, mate.
Say hello, Tom.
Hello, Tom.
Hello.
How's it going? Now, look at it. It's Sunday morning. We're looking at the finish line, right? We're nearly there. We're one day away from the end of the 30 Days of Spectre. I can't quite believe it. I'm not sure how. Am I going to feel empty inside? Am I going to feel this huge vacuum and just be wondering what the hell I'm going to do with my life after the 30 days are over? How are you going to feel, do you think?
I really don't know. I think the first few days are going to be really nice.
Yeah.
just to like chill for a bit. But I think it's going to come back because, we've got a couple of ideas for December. Obviously, we're not going back to the full sort of JBR time straight away. Got a couple of ideas, but it's going to be interesting to see whether we get withdrawal symptoms. And likewise, if the listeners do, I reckon they've probably had enough of us now every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
For 30 odd days. So I think everyone will enjoy the break.
They'll probably want to listen to some other podcasts. I should imagine. For me, there's a good sort of 4 or 5 podcasts I listen to on a regular basis, and I would imagine, if you're listening to a podcast every day, that's seriously impinging on your other podcast time. So yeah, so people can go forth and listen to something else for a change. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Am I getting a bit jealous that people are going to be listening to other podcasts? I don't know.
Well, as long as they come back.
I don't even know who I am anymore, Chris. I don't even know. I don't even know what life's like without 30 Days of Spectre.
We'll find out.
We'll find out for sure.
It'll be good. Okay, so I was thinking, as I occasionally do,
all right.
and I had a bit of a thought regarding Bond, not sort of Bond 25 or Bond speculation or anything like that. But Tom, if you were to somehow have your memory wiped in regards to any film that you'd ever seen, or any Bond film you'd ever seen, or you'd just never encountered Bond prior to this point in life, but today you're like, this James Bond, I might just give it a go. And if you were to watch Bond fresh as a daisy, as a virgin as pure, for the very first time, what do you think you'd make of it? Do you think you'd become ecstatic a fan as you are now? Do you think that would take time? What is your opinion on that? What do you think?
That's a very tricky one, because I feel one of the most powerful things about Bond is the relationship you have with him as a kid, in the sense that, most people say, it was my dad that got me into it. And it brings up memories of Christmas, for example, all the family sitting around watching, Bond together, or the first time your dad takes you to the cinema to see a Bond, and it's this big thing that you think back on in years to come. So I don't know, as an adult man, what that experience would be like to just freshly discover something out of the blue like that, like Bond. I really don't know, because that's a really tough one. I don't know what I'd make of it. Here's an example. For example, my mate Jason was always into like kung fu movies and action movies and all that kind of stuff. And I said to him, I remember Big Trouble in Little China came up in conversation one day, and I was talking about it, and he'd never seen it. And I was like, what? It was almost like there being a Bond film that we hadn't watched. It was so up his street, that film. I couldn't believe he'd not seen it,
Right.
So I was like, you got to watch it. So he, rented it or whatever he did and watched it. And he came out and was like, it was all right. It was, it was okay. And I thought, fuck, man, I'm so surprised, because I just knew that film was right up his street. And I wonder whether, if he had have seen it when he was like 8 years old, whether it would have gone straight into his classic list. And because he didn't have that relationship with it as a kid, to him it was just some rubbish 80s movie. Do you know what I mean?
Nostalgia is a powerful tool.
It is, yeah. So that is a very intriguing question. I just don't know. What are your thoughts?
It's a hard one. I mean, I haven't thought about it myself either, but I think it's my sort of film, obviously, but in terms of, I've always quite liked sort of the action type film or the thriller type film. so I think it would definitely hit my buttons, so to speak. But in terms of would I end up as big a sort of fan of Bond as I am now? I'm not sure. Like straight away when I think of Bond, I think current thoughts, but I also think like early thoughts. I think when, like you were saying, like I remember watching it with my dad over and over all the time when I was young. I don't, Bond's been there since the day I can remember, sort of thing. And it is interesting. It's a toughie, isn't it? And I think definitely I'd enjoy it without a doubt. The interesting thing is looking at Bond now. In fact, that's an interesting point in terms of, how we're saying some people are watching Spectre but they're not sure about it because it's so different to the first three.
Yeah.
The first three being Casino, Quantum and Skyfall, because I haven't seen any other Bonds.
Yeah.
And it'd almost be like, well, if that was the case for us and we hadn't seen that huge variety that we've had through the years with the early Connerys, obviously the Moores and all of that sort of stuff, and the darker Daltons and what have you, watching it fresh and seeing like such a diverse range, would you only sort of zone in on one type of Bond like Daniels, or would you be able to take in all of that difference in terms of different styles and the different actors and stuff like that?
It is a weird one, isn't it? It's like Jack Taylor said in his interview, didn't he? It was GoldenEye on the Nintendo 64 was his first glimpse of what Bond was. And then he watched the film and didn't realise there were other Bond films and thought that was just it. Which for me is such a crazy thing. What a wonderful way to discover it, though, and just find this thing that you like. And then think, I'll watch that film of this video game, watch the film, be like, wow, that was really cool. And then suddenly discover that you've got a complete series of films about the same dude that is just completely undiscovered. To me, I can't even imagine what that life would be like. I can't imagine not having seen Bond films. There are people who've never seen a Bond film, and I just can't. In fact, do those people exist? I don't know. I'm not sure they do.
Very limited. I know, there is that common thing saying over 5 billion people have seen a Bond film, and that was ages ago. So you're looking at like pretty much the global population minus maybe a billion or something. But more than probably anything else, I'd imagine. But okay, so here's another question along similar lines. If you could blank out any of the Bond films that you have seen, just the one, so you could watch it fresh as a new Bond, like you were saying with your friend with a kung fu film with Big Trouble in Little China. What Bond would you choose, and why?
Well, initially my instincts go straight to On Her Majesty's Secret Service, right? But, and this is a very big but, right? I'm not sure whether that would be the wisest one to go for, as much as I would love to. Now, the reason why I would love to is obviously because of that ending. You wouldn't see it coming at all, and it would be imagine that, man. You wouldn't see it coming. But you're kind of like, for example, had Majesty's been the very first Bond film, I don't know whether that would have spawned an entire new series. Like, I feel like there was a very special like chain of events that led from Dr. No happening to this huge explosion with Goldfinger, to it growing with Thunderball, and then it developing into this massive 5-decade-long series. And I feel like it was just because everything and everyone was in the right place at the right time. Sean Connery was the right person to capture the imagination at that specific point, and it became what it was. I feel like maybe if Roger Moore had been Bond in Dr. No, maybe it wouldn't have caught fire like it did. Do you know what I mean? But Roger was perfect for his time, for Spy Who Loved Me to kick off and be this massive hit. He was the right man for that job at that time. It's all about timing with these things, I think.
Definitely.
So I feel like I don't know whether. I suppose that's a sort of a different question, because if you hadn't seen any of the other Bond films and you only watched Majesty's, I don't think you'd get the significance of it. Do you know what I mean? It would be wasted on you. But I think. Yeah, I don't know, man. I really don't know. That's such a tough question. You talk to me. What do you think? So
this one, you've seen them all apart from one, and it's that one that's blanked off your mind.
Well, in that case, then Majesty's every day, all day long. Majesty's every time.
So it would be Majesty's. So that case, so if you've seen them all apart from one, and you get to see it fresh, it'd be Majesty's. But if you hadn't seen any of them and you had to choose one to see as your first viewing, You're not sure. Is that what you're saying?
That is, yes.
Yeah.
What I did there is I took your question and I didn't answer it at all, and I looked at it from a completely different angle. So I apologise for that.
That's all right. Okay, so what would my take on that be? So if I had seen them all and there was one that I hadn't seen, I mean, like you were saying, you just wouldn't see the Majesty's ending coming. I mean, it would be hard to choose. I mean, if it was Casino Royale and you didn't see that and suddenly you saw that, that would be, I guess it's like saying, is it like saying just your best Bond? I don't know. But I think in terms of significance, yeah, that's an interesting one. And also if you had seen all of them, if you hadn't seen any of them and you had to choose one, I don't think it would be Majesty's. I think for me personally, it would either be, I'm going to go with either Goldfinger or Casino Royale.
Do you know what? I was going to say Goldfinger for that one, because Goldfinger for me wraps up what Bond on the screen is. You know, you've got that DB5, you've got all that iconic stuff that happens in that. You've got Sean in his absolute prime, being the coolest bastard in the world. You've got the blue terry cloth onesie. What else do you need? Do you know what I mean? If that's going to be your introduction, that is the way to do it, I think. Goldfinger for sure, yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt. But there we go. Just a couple of little questions to get us started on this lovely Sunday morning.
Little nuggets, absolutely. So let's stop the waffle and we'll get cracking with our first interview of the day. We've got Mr. Steve Thorp. Now, what do you think about that? Are you excited?
Oh yeah, Steve's great, isn't he? We obviously Steve joined us, didn't he, on the premiere night when afterwards we all went to the casino and had, I can't even remember how many Vespers we had, but I'm sure we were reaching, a good number by the end of the night. And he was one of the elite few 00 section that stayed towards the end of the night. So salute Steve Thorp for sure.
Absolutely, good stuff. So without any further ado, then let's chat to Mr. Thorp, Steve Thorp. Okay, so please welcome to James Bond Radio, our latest interview guest, Mr. Steve Thorp. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. All right, Chris.
All right, Steve. Good to have you on board, mate.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. Good to speak to you.
Good stuff. Now, we have to say Steve is one of the elite 00 section members who was one of the last men standing at the Empire Casino after the Spectre screening. So kudos to you, sir.
Thank you. Oh, what a day that was.
It was, wasn't it?
That was an amazing day. The funny thing was, actually, before you go with it, the funny thing was, when we was doing the meet-up beforehand, I was outside Scarlett's, and, when you're on your own, you don't want to kind of walk in because you don't know anyone and everything. There was this guy waiting outside, and I was thinking, I know he must be waiting for everyone else, but I don't know him. I wanted to go up to him and say, in London, April's a spring month. I didn't.
Oh, mate.
That would have been so good.
But, mate, it was an amazing day, though. It was an amazing day.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe next time we do a JBR meetup, man, maybe that's we have to have a code word, a code phrase to let anybody in. Yeah, that's brilliant.
That's
love it. Cool stuff. All right, mate. Well, we're going to start off with our 007 quickfire questions as per usual. So we're going to start off with the first one. Mr. Steve Thorp, what is your favourite Bond film?
Nice and easy for me, Casino Royale.
It's a bloody good one, that.
It doesn't get better than that. It doesn't get better than that. I mean, as Bond fans, it is kind of a difficult question because it does change, but Casino Royale is right up there for me.
What is it about that you like so much, then?
Well, I mean, obviously it was a shift in tone, which obviously, the series did need after the Nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Daniel, I mean, I was one of the naysayers. If I get a chance to sit down and chat with him, I will apologise to him because I was one of the naysayers. I remember that press conference he did.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, oh my goodness, this is not the right move, but how wrong could we be?
Yeah. I must admit, I was exactly the same. I remember I had my head in my hands when they wheeled him out. Well, do you remember he had the life jacket on the boat and stuff? And I was like, what's going on here? And then that press conference, do you remember he sort of didn't, I think he was a bit like a rabbit in the headlights, wasn't he? He sort of was giving some really sort of standoffish answers and stuff that just weren't really working. And then all the press backlash happened. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But prove us wrong.
It's all about the movie, isn't it?
And,
yeah, he pulled it off, and that's an amazing film.
Yeah,
I think that really gave him a bit of impetus to like make it even better than it was going to be. You know, everyone hated it.
I think that's part of it. Yeah, definitely, because it must have been amazing for him after all the grief that he had leading up to it, and when the film came out, and obviously the reviews it got, it's an amazing film.
Yeah.
Definitely. Cool. So question number 2 then, Steve. What is your favourite James Bond book?
Well, I obviously heard you talking about it the other day. I love You Only Live Twice. I think that's... it's been a while since I've read it, but I do like the whole Garden of Death thing. I also like Live and Let Die as well. I think that's a great book. Again, it's been a while since I've read them, but those two definitely stand out. Obviously, Casino Royale is amazing because I hadn't read the book prior to seeing the film, so it was quite nice to read that after I'd watched the movie to kind of realise how close to the book the movie was.
Yeah,
that's great.
Very nice, good stuff. Next one, the $1 million question: who is your favourite Bond girl?
That's an easy one for me as well. Naomi from Spy Love Me. Caroline Munro. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
she is.
When we had her on the show, man, even though it was only over the phone, I had some little trembles going on. She's weak at the knees and all that kind of business. What a beautiful woman she is. Good God.
And that is such an amazing entrance into the movie that she makes as well, isn't it? Off the boat and so definitely coming on.
And to top it off, she's really, really lovely too. Really lovely person.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. Yeah, well, the interview was great. I enjoyed that. So
and she's got a really sexy wink too, which always helps.
Yeah, I love it.
So going on to question 4 then, Steve. Who is your favourite James Bond villain?
Well, I like, and it's probably more to do with the fact that he's such a fantastic actor, is Christopher Walken Sorin in A View to a Kill. Although it's not one of my favourite movies, he is just amazing. Christopher Walken he's a powerhouse of an actor.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of people mention him actually, haven't we?
He's one of those that he does the raving mad psycho very well, doesn't he? Yeah.
He's very unhinged.
Yeah.
He could go off at any time. I love that scene in the movie where he's obviously getting Bond the horse and he's doing all this stuff on his computer, but obviously he's really kind of checking him out and like seeing his it comes up License to Kill on his screen. Mm-hmm. That particular scene in that movie, I love Christopher Walken in that scene.
I tell you what, as well, I love him and Mayday together. I think they really go really well together. Like that scene when they're like having the little martial arts fight, or whatever it is they're doing, judo or something. That's a good one. Good stuff. Next question: who is your favourite James Bond actor?
Oh my goodness, I'll get asked this question all the time when I get asked about Bond, and I don't know, man. Again, it changes. I mean, you can't go wrong with Sean, can you, really?
No.
You can't go wrong with Sean. I mean, his early movies, because obviously his movies did get more and more fantastical as they went along, but those early movies that he'd done, obviously Dr. No and From Russia with Love, and even Goldfinger, even though that was the kind of the beginning of when it all kind of went a bit more fantastical, is just so amazing. And obviously the opening scene of Dr. No at Le Secale, I mean, that's probably one of the coolest moments in cinema history as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I mean,
I love that bit. It's so cool.
One of the memorable moments, actually, Steve, from our casino session after Spectre, was your impassioned defence of Roger Moore. Do you remember what you were saying?
Oh, so Roger. Well, I mean, I love Roger because Roger's my Bond. I mean, I grew up in the 70s, so Roger is my man.
Yeah.
I can't even remember what exactly that I said.
It was filled with foul language and how Roger how you wouldn't.
Probably one or two. I probably overdid it on the Book of Martinis more than likely. But you got to love Roger though. You can't. I mean, we love them all, don't we?
Yeah.
And it's very hard to pick your favourite. but you know, you have to go with Sean because he's the man that started the whole thing. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, everybody, any actor that comes in to play the part will always be compared to Sean.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So, you know.
And you got to meet Roger, didn't you? You got to do an interview with him. Tell us a little bit about that.
That was an amazing thing. Well, it was basically the BBC were looking for Bond fans, and yeah, so obviously I'd written in, and basically the BBC called me, and at that point I didn't know what I had to do. The BBC just called me and they said, you know, we hear you're Bond fans, would you be interested in coming to the studio and have a little chat with us? So obviously I went there, and you know that, and you know, I'm 46 now, and I've been into Bond since I was about 6 years old. So you know, I've got 40 years worth to talk about. And you know, they filmed a few things, and then they sort of said to me, no, if we'll show the tape to the director, and if we like you, we'll get you on the show. And the cameraman, I remember him saying to me, oh, you know, you're really good, I bet they'd call you. And they did call me, and they still didn't know what I had to do at that point. And then obviously they said it's the kind of interview Roger Moore on the Graham Norton show.
Wow.
So it was a bit, yeah, it was a little bit. At the end of the day, I met the man, and I got to banter with him. But of course, before we went in, they sort of said to us, you know, think of some questions that you could ask, etc. So I'd written all these like in-depth questions, you know, about the movies and about his career and everything. And of course, just before we were going, they said, oh yeah, by the way, we want you to do this, this, and this, and there was all these stupid stunts that you had to do, and I was like, oh, mate, I'm not doing it. I refused to do it, and they sort of said, well, no, that's part of the show. So I went along with it, but you know, like I said, I got to banter with the man for half an hour or so, and it was an amazing day. I got to film the gun barrel and all that stuff, the carriages. Yeah. It was amazing.
So
you'll never forget.
Is that available online somewhere for us to watch?
It is, yeah. I've got. I'll have to put a link up because it is on. I've got a YouTube channel and it is on. I never go on there. That's the thing. So I'll stick the link. I'll stick the link up on your Facebook page.
Beautiful. Nice. What we'll do is underneath this episode posting, we'll put the link in it as well for any of the listeners, so they can watch it. Brilliant stuff.
And what was the big man like when you got to chat to him?
Oh, he was great. He was a really, you know, he's just a good sport, and that's the thing about Roger. You know that. Even if you've never met him, because of the way he comes across. When he obviously loved being Bond. You know, anything he can do for Bond, he will do it. And and that's why we all love him. And at the end of the day, he sat there for the longest, didn't he? We've done the most films anyway.
Yes.
So and like I said, he's the Bond that I grew up with. In fact, the first Bond movie that I saw at the cinema was The Spy Who Loved Me, 1977. I was 8 years old. And it's one of those things that really, I'd seen Bond movies prior to that, but that was the one that really kind of, and obviously for Roger as well, it's his best movie. And, I mean, you can't say nothing about Roger. You've got to love him.
So question 5 then, Steve. What is your favourite scene in the whole series?
My favourite theme song?
Favourite scene.
Oh, favourite scene, sorry. My favourite scene. I mean, the torture scene, I guess, from Casino Royale is, that was just another level as far as Bond movies go. We'd never, ever seen anything like that. I mean, when they were making the movie, that's kind of one of the things that kind of prompted me to read the book. Even though I'd seen the film before I'd read the book, obviously everyone did talk about that torture scene, and I was aware of it, obviously before I'd seen the film. But that was something else that we'd never seen before. But also, obviously, that opening scene from Dr. No, the casino scene where we first get introduced to the man himself. I mean, like I said, you can't get much cooler than that, and that whole setup. I mean, it was just amazing, and obviously I don't think anyone's delivered the line as good since that movie came out, because it's so iconic, isn't it?
That's true. Yeah, even the man himself. That the timing of that performance at the casino table is just so perfect, and the delivery is just so perfect. It's just untouchable. Absolutely.
Yeah, it is definitely.
Cool, good choice. So you mentioned there you're going to see Spy Who Loved Me in the cinema there. But what's your earliest memory of Bond? Some people say it was a family member that got them into Bond. Like, where did it all start for you? What kicked it all off?
I think probably Goldfinger was my earliest memory, and it being on TV, and it was one of those situations where, like all kids do, where you have to go to bed before the film ends. And I remember kind of looking through a little gap in the door of my mum and dad's living room, and like looking, and yeah, I remember the obviously the laser scene. I remember that, but that's probably my earliest memory. You know, I really can't remember exactly how I got, you know, when I actually got into it, but obviously it's a TV thing. And my dad, although my dad's not a huge Bond fan, he always used to love the movies when they, and the same, my dad used to always take me to the cinema. We always used to go together as a family. So my brother, my mum, and in fact, I've taken my brother and my mum to see Spectre, actually, a little while, a few weeks back.
Nice.
So,
did they enjoy it?
Yeah, my mum loved it. Well, see, now my mum, it's funny because my mum's totally not into Bond. She's not into it. And a lot of the time I go to the cinema with my youngest son. So she always likes to come into the cinema with us because it's just a chance to see her grandson or whatever. But I took her to see Skyfall, and it blew her away. She was really, she loved it. She was really blown away. And obviously, when Spectre comes out, she said, yeah, we've definitely got to see it. And again, she really loved it. So you do find that sometimes a lot of people that the Bond movies have not really sat down and watched them properly, or maybe have got memories of the dodgier ones, maybe in the Roger era or whatever. I mean, now just for the fact of the calibre of actors and everything they're getting as well, I mean, it's a big deal now.
Absolutely.
So just to finish off the quick fire round then, what would you say is the most favourite location that you visited, Bond location, and what one would you like to visit that you haven't seen already?
The Bond location that I've visited.
Yeah.
I honestly don't think I've visited any. I'm not a huge traveller.
Which one would you like to visit if you had the chance?
Which one would I like to visit? Well, I'll tell you where I am going in May. I'm going to Las Vegas in May.
Nice.
So the whole Diamonds Are Forever thing, because it's Las Vegas, isn't it? So yeah. I'm definitely looking forward to that. So I wouldn't mind going up into space for that now.
That is the first time we've had that one.
Why not?
That's the best one we've had, I think.
Very nice. Love it. Cool stuff. All right then, Steve-O, it's time to talk Spectre, buddy. So first question is, are you a Spectre lover, a hater, or somewhere in the middle?
I'm a Spectre lover, I would say, although it's changed a little bit. It's changed a little bit from the first time that I saw it. Mm-hmm. And you want to explain why?
Absolutely.
Go for it.
Well, look, I mean, the thing is, there was a lot of hype for this movie. I know I was really, really psyched for it. And I'm not like, I know, Chris, you had the willpower to avoid all the spoilers and all the trailers and everything. And I wish I was like that, because I lap all that stuff up. I just can't help it. Although they did pretty well with Spectre with regards to, I didn't look at the leaked script, so that was the only thing that I didn't look at, because that would have been silly to read that before seeing the film. But other than that, I wasn't entirely sure what was going to happen. We had a rough idea of the story and everything, but it was so hyped. And that day, obviously, we all met up and everything. And I remember being in Leicester Square, and I loved it. I absolutely loved that movie. It was great. But I did kind of get a little bit caught up in the hype. I remember when the movie ended and the lights were coming up, and we was kind of sat in the front row in that Royal Circle, and I saw at the end, and I chatted to him before we came in, but I'd seen old Mr. Golden Voice, Simon Willie, at the end, and he looked at me, and I looked at him, and he was like, just breathe, take it all in, because we were like, oh my God, and it was amazing. And I've seen it 4 times now. The second time I saw it at the IMAX, which again was another incredible experience. But the thing about the movie that I've found is that now I've seen it, everything has kind of died down and everything. If I was to compare it to Skyfall, I've got to be honest, I think I did like Skyfall more. I think I do like Skyfall more. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that's not to say that I don't think that Spectre is an awesome movie. It is. I think probably one of my issues with it is I don't want them, even though it was classic Bond, and I know, Tom, you love classic Bond, we all love classic Bond, don't get me wrong, but I don't know whether or not they're going too far in that direction now.
Interesting.
I always liked, I mean, obviously one of the reasons I like Casino Royale is because it is much more grounded. And I think probably it makes you wonder whether or not Daniel would have signed on to play Bond if they started turning into something, even though I know he's had obviously producing credits and everything, and obviously he obviously has a say in the story as well. But I bet that wasn't the Bond that he wanted to play when he signed up.
Do you know what? That's a good point, actually. And that's not come up so far in the 30 Days of Spectre. And do you know what I think it is? I think, coming off the back of Die Another Day, it so desperately needed a shake-up. And they did it in the best way they possibly could have. It was an absolute roaring success in every way you could possibly imagine. And Casino Royale is an absolute masterpiece, totally. And I think what you can't do is sort of serve up the same sort of thing 5-6 times. Do you know what I mean? You've got to have some sort of movement in there. And it's, if you say the same about Connery, you couldn't do From Russia with Love 6 times, And I feel like what that is they were like, do you know what? We've reintroduced Q and Moneypenny now. Let's just make a balls out classic Bond and not do it by halves. Let's just go all out. We'll have the hollowed out volcano style lair. We'll do all that stuff and just go balls out with it. And then I'm in two minds whether, when we get round to Bond 25, whether it'll be more of the same of that, or whether it's almost, because if you look at Skyfall and Spectre, they're almost like night and day. And I feel like the next one could be, especially if what people's suspicions are of what's going to happen to Madeline and stuff next time round. And if they do go down that route, then it's going to have to go darker next time.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all in the writing. I mean, that's the most important thing about these movies. It's all in the writing. And as I say, I loved Spectre. I genuinely loved it. I think it was a great movie. But I just wasn't expecting as much humour. Humour is fine. I think that's great. But it's kind of like, I think that, you were talking about the kind of the American generic action movies. And I think, Bond was always very, very separated from those style movies. Now, a lot of those American style, you think of the Die Hards and these type of movies, they're all got the wisecrack thing, which originally did come from Bond, but everybody's kind of done it now. And I think when the Bourne movies came out, it kind of flipped everything on its head. But I like those movies, I like the Bourne movies, but I would never, ever compare them to Bond. As far as I'm concerned, Bond is the man, that's it. So when Casino Royale came out, which had that kind of flavour, they went too far with it with Quantum of Solace. They went too far the other way. I think Royale just got the balance completely right. But it is good to have a bit of humour. But I don't know. I don't want it to go too far that way, too far into the. I like to keep it grounded. But the beauty of Spectre though as well is when it had its moments, the moments were so good. So good, mate, I know, Tom, you're a massive fan of obviously the opening title sequence, as you probably are as well, Chris. I'm not saying that, but I know, Tom, you raved about that opening title sequence, and I thought that was amazing. Something I actually noticed in that opening sequence, you spoke about the fact that you could, out of all that sea of people, you could see Sciarra kind of coming through the crowd and everything. You immediately locked into him. Now, I done something a bit different, because when I first saw that movie, I locked immedately onto Bond and Estrella, who were, you could actually see them pretty early into that scene as the camera kind of swung in. Obviously, it stood on the right. And although, as I say, you obviously the camera was kind of focusing in on Sciarra, but Bond and Estrella, those are the two people that I noticed first. And it reminded me of Moonraker, in that Rio de Janeiro scene, the carnival scene, there's a scene where Bond and, I forget her name, Manuela, I think her name was. Yeah, that's they're walking in, and Bond's obviously going to go and check out that warehouse. But if you look in the background of that scene, you can see Jaws. You can actually see him, his head, and you can see him look at them, even though he doesn't really get introduced into the scene until he starts walking up that alley when Bond's actually in the warehouse. But if you watch the film, you can see him right in the background, only because we know what he looks like now with the mask on. And that's kind of reminded me of that at the beginning of Spectre.
Interesting.
Yeah, you sort of don't notice Bond, but he's there pretty much immediately in that scene. But you just probably, you're more focused, I guess, on the centre of the screen. But
but
if you watch the Blu-ray, you can see Jaws, and you can see him looking at them as they're walking into that alley. So that kind of gave me a little reminder of that sort of scene. So.
Nice.
Yeah, that's really good. I like that. I think that's one of my favourite bits in Moonraker as well, when we see that scene. And I've noticed that the sort of clown head looking in the background, and it adds that certain bit of horror to it, doesn't it? It's almost
it does, definitely
freaks you out a bit. And that bit with Bond and Estrella, because funnily enough, I think I locked onto them the very first time, and I think the reason for that is that everyone else was kind of moving, but yet they were static, and they were just standing there. And so I was drawn to them as well before I saw Marco Sciarra. So I was the same as you, because everyone else was jumping up and down, moving around, and they were just there. And that's what attracted me when I watched the pre-titles. But did you have a favourite scene in the whole film, Spectre?
Well, I mean, the fight scene was epic. I mean, that was incredible. I mean, that was proper brutal as well. So I loved that scene. I loved the Spectre meeting. Again, that was so well done as well. And with Christoph, when he walked into that room, that was just done. And there was no music, there was nothing. It was just quiet. And the woman, the older woman that was talking, reminded me a little bit of I guess you're going to compare it a little bit to like Rosa Klebb kind of character, like a Spectre thing. But when Christoph spoke, when he sort of said, I think he said, continue, or he said, don't let me interrupt you, whatever.
Yeah.
That was a proper old school Blofeld voice. That was that really, and I thought, that was done amazingly well. So probably the Spectre meeting was probably my favourite scene.
Very nice. That was a banger. So when because obviously you were at the Leicester Square showing, as you said, what was like the atmosphere like in the room at the time? Was it a good set? Because I feel like when you watch a movie with certain people or in certain places, it can totally affect the experience. So what was that like for you?
Good. That is so true. Because this is another thing that cinema itself is an amazing cinema. It's a beautiful cinema, and it's big. And we had these amazing seats right at the front of the Royal Circle looking down, and it was packed. Even when you walked into the cinema, it was heaving. It was like, in itself, it was like a premiere in itself. I took a lot of pictures outside, and it was really buzzing, and you could feel that vibe in there. And I dare say there were obviously a lot of hardcore Bond fans, but there were probably a lot of casual fans in there as well. Because I think that cinema holds about 1,800 people, I think, and it was full to capacity. And I was really. I remember I was sweating because I was so hot at that as well in there. And I was like, and it was we were all. That the atmosphere was incredible, and of course, when that music kicked in, because this is another thing, this was quite a strange thing. Obviously we spoke about the gun barrel, and it was an amazing thing that the gun barrel was at the beginning of the movie. I didn't know it was going to happen at the beginning of the movie, but I fully expected it to happen. I think that Sam Mendes probably would have been crucified had he not done it. But what was unusual about it is that how early the music came in, because it comes in, I think, over the studio titles, over the studio logos.
Well, it comes in when the screen's absolutely blank. The screen is just black at that point. That's when that part kicks in. But I'm sure, sometimes things change in your mind, even I've seen it 4 times, things do change. I thought the music actually still, it sort of was doing those classic 3 notes through the actual logo.
I think you're right. Yeah.
And then that kicks in when it turned black. But the actual, those iconic 3 notes kicked in actually as the title logos, as the studio logos came up.
Right.
which I've not seen before.
Yeah, it was interesting, wasn't it? How there was, even though it was a return to the classic gun barrel design and stuff, which I just think pisses all over all the other ones, all the totally. All the previous ones. He's a lot bigger in the frame, isn't he? And B, you actually see his gun hand as he walks. You see the gun in his hand as he does it. The turn and shoot. I didn't notice that, actually. The blood is like almost dripping over the lens rather than sort of in the middle distance like we usually have it. And then, of course, it doesn't usually. Obviously, the white spot sort of wobbles, goes into the corner, and then opens out onto the scene. This time, it just fades completely to black. So, as much as a return to the classic gun barrel that it is, there's some really interesting differences in it as well. Yeah,
it was great though. It was great to see it, and as I say, that opening. I mean, talking about favourite sequences, even that pre-title sequence. I mean, that was amazing. It was
a banger. Yeah.
Definitely. Was there anything about the film then, Steve, that you'd change if you could, or anything that you weren't sure about?
Yeah, there are things that I've got problems with. One of the main things that I've got an issue with the movie is the score. I'm not a fan of because, you know, again, I listened to your podcast the other day about the score, but I love the pre-title sequence score. Is great. That song that's playing with the drums and the Bond theme, that's great. I love that. That fits really, really well. But there's not enough of that kind of. I know, you know, we kind of talk about the John Barry thing, and you know, but I love that style, and I think that, you know, I also don't think that they play the Bond theme enough. That's another thing that you don't really hear very much. And again, I think you need it. You need that. I'm not saying. I remember listening to director's commentary, I think, on Tomorrow Never Dies, and I know David Arnold was talking about the fact that he used it at every opportunity he got, and he probably overdid it, but I still loved hearing it, you know?
Yeah. To be honest, for me, I think you can't go wrong with using the Bond theme. Like, I don't think it's possible to overdo it. You know, if you watch Dr. No, for example, it's almost like that's the only piece of music they've got. Do you know what I mean? And I love every second of it. And it is such a shame. We've talked about it before, but I was at a Q&A with Michael G. Wilson, and he was saying how somebody asked him about that. Why don't we hear it as often? And he said it's a royalty thing for the composer. It's not it's not their choice, but the composer comes in. The more he uses it, the less money he gets for his own composition. So they like to these days do as much on their own as they can and just use a tiny bit of the Bond theme, which is such a shame, man. It really is.
Because that's part of it. There's certain elements that you have to have, and the music for any film is a big deal. But certainly from the perspective of that classic sound, because like you said, there wasn't enough melody in score. It was a lot of percussion, and I didn't mind it so much in Skyfall, but because I used such similar music, or even pretty much used the same music in some of the scenes as well from Skyfall, it's all right if you get the cues that relate to Skyfall. Like, for instance, when Judi Dench appeared on the screen, they played that theme from Skyfall.
That was great,
which was perfect because it actually meant something. But you know, I miss all those classic, you know, din 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 din. All that sort of stuff. I love all that stuff. So you kind of need that, and it's just that was pretty disappointing from my point of view.
I must admit, I do feel the same with that. For me, with this score, it could be any sort of action movie. It doesn't, you know, with the exception of the pre-title sequence, which I think he's got absolutely nailed. The rest of it just sort of, it feels like it could be any movie for me, really. But there we go.
Something else, actually, but no one's talked about this, and I've got a real problem with it because I love art. I went to college, did art. I still do a little bit of drawing and stuff. I love all that. And I have really hated the marketing stuff that they've used for Spectre. And I didn't like it for Skyfall as well. Those classic Bond pictures that you used to get, the Bond posters, the classic ones. Well, you know, I used to love all that stuff. And I can't understand why I'm not saying... they just didn't look it looked photoshopped, basically, a lot of those posters. I just didn't really, I don't like the big 007 logo in the background, and They did one for Casino Royale, which was classic. It was classy. It wasn't, it was just suited the film perfectly, and it looked fantastic.
Do you know what, man? Yeah, I feel exactly the same. Like there's a Casino Royale teaser poster where he's at the casino table with his one hand on the gun.
Oh, mate,
that is brilliant.
So good. In fact, that was the very first piece of market material that I saw, and I really pay attention to stuff like that because I love advertising as well. And I saw that, and I thought, oh my God, that is genius. That just looks, and it just, it's class. It oozes Bond, and this stuff that they've done for Spectre, and the stuff that they did with Skyfall, they did like the teaser poster for Skyfall was great, but the rest of the marketing stuff I didn't like. I actually did like the teaser poster for Spectre. I know a lot of people said, "Oh, it's just a picture of Daniel with a roll neck and a gun holster on," but I liked that. I think that really looked good, and like you mentioned before, it was quite disappointing that he didn't wear that outfit. Well, to be fair, he did wear the outfit, but he had a jacket on over the top at the end because that was the outfit he was wearing. But obviously, he had the John Voltaire jacket over the top. But
you do see quite a few fan-made posters, and they look really good. Some of the Spectre that I've seen sort of outdoes those sort of the one with classic one with Bond and Madeline standing next to him. Okay, it's fair enough, but if you want to go with that angle, that's fine. But we also want to see the other angle where you got a little bit of your action behind it, or a little, just a bit more going on. I think
because it does. When I was a kid, when I used to walk past the cinema, I used to see those posters, and look, that looks amazing. And this is before internet and everything, and you could, that was what would draw you in. You would look at a poster and you would say, "Oh my God!" For instance, I dare say a lot of you are going to be going seeing the new Star Wars movie when it comes out.
Yeah,
that poster they've done for that is amazing. It took me right back to my childhood. I looked at it, I thought, that's going to be wicked. And that's what you want to feel for the Bond movies, because that's how their posters used to be. Yeah. And I can't figure out why. It's almost like they spent all the budget on the movie and they thought, "Oh, we've got this few quid left."
It's funny that it really is. The last two sort of, they look almost like menswear posters, don't they? Do you know what I mean? Like you would get in a men's clothing store rather than a Bond poster.
Magazine or something.
Yeah.
And for hardcore fans, this stuff matters to us, But not only from that point of view, but, from purely from a marketing point of view, surely you would make an effort to do a good poster. Anyway,
that kind of fight. Yeah, no, absolutely. That final one they did where it's got the sort of Bond in his skull mask in the background and then him stood in the front. It's just like how sort of non-imaginative is that? Just take one little.
Uninspiring. It really was. Yeah, unfortunate.
There we go. So you mentioned earlier on how you're a big Skyfall fan, and you Skyfall just kind of edges it over above Spectre. How do you feel Spectre sits? Give us your rundown of the 4 Daniel movies. In what order would you place them? And then overall, for the whole series, where would you place it?
Spectre. Well, Spectre, for me, Casino Royale is my top one. Mm-hmm. Spectre and Skyfall, they're gonna change at some point. At the moment, Skyfall's just edged it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with Spectre and then Quantum of Solace. But that list of 4 movies are extremely close together because I love them all.
Yeah.
But it's just a case of someone puts me on the spot, then but I do love all Daniel's movies. I think he's done an amazing job, and I love Spectre. I love it, honestly. I think that Casino Royale has set the bar so high.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not so sure that it's going to be achieved again, but he's done a good job in all these movies, Quantum of Solace included. I know had some issues with writing, etc., and he's great in all the movies. And as I say, I think that with Spectre, it had so many epic moments. It's a great movie, but it was just, obviously the third act thing. That's obviously where the problems start. Really, for me, I wasn't. The car chase was great, although again it was a little bit. I felt that the comedy during that scene, I don't know, it didn't sit right with me, and I wasn't a great fan of. I can't believe I'm saying it, but I wasn't a great fan of the gadget car.
Okay.
You know, I like to keep it a little bit more grounded than that.
Yeah.
I mean, like the machine guns at the end of Skyfall, I thought, no, well, that was completely unexpected. And at the time, I thought, oh, that's amazing. But when I look back on it, I think, I don't know. You know what I mean?
That's Tom's favourite bit in the whole of Skyfall, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, that was a sort of that was a grimace moment for me. That one when that happened, for sure.
I mean, even it doesn't. It's just I don't know whether or not it fits in with Daniel's Bond, and don't get me wrong, I love that car chase, but as I say, I'm not so sure it kind of fits in. I mean, the fact that. Again, something else she was talking about, the Quantum of Solace car chase at the beginning, his car is smashed up and everything. That's real. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And, that's what I like. I like that sort of, I like that sort of car chase. Not that it's still spectacular, but,
do you know what's
dents and a few scratches?
Yeah. Do you know what's funny though? My brother told me he was doing some research on it, and he said that the Jaguar car, was basically not really put together that well, in the sense that there was like gaps in the chassis and all kind of crazy stuff, and it was almost like held together with tape in a sense. Obviously not literally. So that obviously, if they'd have done any ramming or anything like that, the car would have just fallen to bits.
Right.
And he showed me this video of them bringing one of the cars off the back of a truck, and like you can see the doors aren't even like smooth with the rest of the car. They're like sort of just on at a weird angle and stuff. So I guess that would maybe that's why they didn't get too aggressive with the ramming and stuff,
Yeah.
So, Steve, where would you put Spectre overall then in the sort of list of Bond films?
It's up there. Again, it's kind of you've got to still give it time to kind of settle, I think. But it's I could safely say it's in the top 10.
Okay.
I would say
solid standing.
I'd say it's definitely a top 10, but. Like us all, we kind of change all the time, don't we? So because I dare say, because it's kind of like had an opposite effect on me. Because when I first saw Skyfall, even though I liked it, that film has grown on me more as I've watched it. Now I haven't seen it for a while, but I've watched it so many times, and I love that movie.
Yeah.
And I think with Spectre. It may be a case of because I've seen it 4 times within a week, or a short space of time or whatever, but I loved it the first time. I loved it the second time at the IMAX. And when I saw it the third and fourth time, I was like, it dragged a little bit for me.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Okay.
So,
fair enough.
But it, as I say, I believe it's solid top 10, definitely.
Cool. Good stuff. So then final question, Steve. What are your predictions for Bond 25? What do you think we're going to get? And on the other side of the coin, what would you love to see?
Well, obviously everyone's talked about the whole, Blofeld trilogy and the Majesty thing. And so that, in my opinion, has to happen. It has to be like a revenge story, maybe, whether or not, because this is another thing. Obviously, the Majesty's theme played in that trailer, that Spectre trailer, and there is a reason why they put it in there. There's got to be, because that was just way too random. So they know what they're doing, and that's the route that I feel that they're going to go down when the next one comes out. That's the route that I feel that it's going down. Although I think that this was another strange thing for me with regards to Léa Seydoux's character. Do you not think she was a little bit young? Or is that just me? Maybe I'm old-fashioned. She's like 30 years old, Léa Seydoux.
Yeah, I guess if you're looking at the age gap, you could always look at Fiore's Only with Rog and BB Doll.
That was a version of paedophilia. That was wrong even in my book. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, do you know what? I think what we're failing to take into consideration here is that we are dealing with James Bond, who is irresistible to all women. And I suppose, old Jane Seymour was a similar sort of age gap, I guess, to Roger at the time and things like that. So, but do you know what? It didn't strike me as
the chemistry was great.
A huge gap.
The chemistry was great. Yeah. But I don't know. I just thought about it. But definitely, I feel that that's the route that I would love to see, and I would love to see a kind of a Majesty's type of situation and a bit of a revenge story. I think that would
nice,
because they can make that dark. That could be really dark. So and you're probably right. Probably Daniel's 10 you probably could have done with a little bit of lightening up.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's still a great movie.
Yeah, I think there's the thing with, like we say, Sean gets more and more lighter and more fantastic as things go on.
Yeah.
Roger, he had a sort of wobble either way, didn't he? He went up to Moonraker, which was the most fantastical. The next one was really grounded, and then when it went up again for Octopussy, and then perhaps down a bit again for you to a kill. So I feel like there's no definite. They don't have to go light with the next one. Do you know what I mean? It could be a total ton of events as well. But
it's set up well. It's set up really, really well. And as I say, there was the ending. I mean, I loved the crater thing and the meteorite thing. That was amazing. I thought that was incredible. And obviously now we've got Blofeld with the scar. I mean, it's right. And I can't wait. Now we've got to wait another 3 years now.
Yeah,
that's the trouble, isn't it?
Yeah. But we'll look forward to it.
Good stuff. Well, thanks for joining us, Steve. It's been good
amazing.
fun. Yeah, it's been it was good to meet you, obviously, at the meetup at Scarlet's and stuff, and it's good to have you back on the show as well.
Thank you, my friends. Well, listen, thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. Love what you're doing. Keep it going, and hopefully we'll hook up soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. We're going to organise a JBR get together next year at some point. So once we've sorted all the details, we'll let everyone know, and obviously it'd be great to see you again.
It'd be amazing. Thanks, Chris, and thanks, Tom. I really appreciate it.
All right, mate. Take care then.
Take it easy, guys.
Cheers, then. Bye.
See you later. Bye.
So, what do you think about that then? That was entertaining stuff, I thought.
It was good stuff. It's always a pleasure chatting to Steve for sure. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Some good stories there. I mean, that Graham Norton thing is pretty incredible, isn't it? I mean, what an opportunity.
Well, getting to interview Roger Moore is like unbelievable, and I mean, that's going to live with him forever, isn't it?
Yeah.
So he must have. It must have been. So many people must have gone for that, and obviously, I think only 3 of them were shown on the show. So to get picked is awesome. And he must have loved it. So lovely job. And I love the way as well. Probably one of the funniest things when we're saying, what's your favourite Bond location that you want to visit?
Yeah.
What do you say?
He wants to go into space. That made me laugh out loud. What a brilliant one! And nobody's mentioned that yet. I think that's a great one. Yeah, totally out of the box thinking. I love it.
Yeah,
but good stuff. Yeah, good man, Steve. Obviously, being one of the last men standing at the Leicester Square Casino. And thanks for coming on the show and all the rest of it. Well, obviously, what we'll do is we'll get the link to the Graham Norton thing. And we'll put it underneath this video, whether that's on YouTube or on the actual JBL website. So you can see Steve in action on TV with Sir Roger. Good stuff. So that about rounds up today's episode. Obviously, we've got the last of our double barrel interview episodes today. So Steve's in the bag, and our second interview of the day is with Mr. Jack Lugo, all the way from New York City. So yes, until we see you very shortly, if you're going to double barrel them back to back, we'll see you in the Jack Lugo episode. If not, we will see you tomorrow for the final episode of the 30 Days of Spectre. So there we go.
Why wouldn't anyone double barrel us? I mean, come on, what else are you going to be doing with your life?
Certainly nothing constructive, that's for sure.
Definitely not.
No.
Definitely not.
But there we go. So until then, I've been Tom Sears.
I've been Chris Wright.
And we will return very shortly with Jack Lugo, or, if you're skipping that one, tomorrow morning.
We'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye.